Welcome to day 4 of the FENS Forum 24. This is Friday the 28th of June, and we're going to try and give you a flavour of the forum on this, the penultimate day. Professor Lola Ledesma is the chair of the Host Society Committee for FENS 2026, which will happen in Madrid. And when I met her, I suggested it must be very hard to think 2 years ahead when the current conference is in full swing.
Well, in fact, the best thing of being here is learning what should be done in 2026 in Madrid as well. And it's been a fantastic experience, not only in terms of science and research, excellent talks, but also in how to share experiences, how the people interact, what a venue should be. So I'm projecting myself already to 2026, and Vienna is helping me a lot in doing so.
Now, I know that you've organised a few events, but nothing before on this scale. I know that you've told me that before. So is the prospect of organising something like this in Madrid in 2026, does that scare you?
Of course, it's challenging, but after meeting the people organising here the FENS and the FENS people, I feel really good, because I know we have this support. They have the experience, they are already teaching us, giving advice, and in Madrid we have a long tradition of preparing big meetings. So also the infrastructure with the local authorities is going to be fine. So of course it's a challenge. We are excited, more than scared.
And is there anything that you've already learned?
Many things. For example, one of the things is to provide the time for the people to interact. So it's great to have very nice talks, of course, and big researches, but it's also important the time for interaction for young people in the poster sessions, for the social events outside the meeting, and this is something that we have to consider. And the other thing that I've learned is that we would like to extend really the FENS influence, or the FENS meeting, to the streets in Madrid, to the general public, not only the neuroscientists. And we are figuring out ways to do it in a fun way.
One would imagine that there are things that need to have been done already for Madrid 2026.
Yeah, it's incredible that the FENS staff, besides preparing all these in Vienna, has already time to set things, very important things in Madrid. So the venue we have, the dates we have, the contact with the local authorities are done. And at the Spanish Society of Neuroscience, we are now moving forward, and we have the committees to establish what is going to be in charge of outreach, what is going to be in front of the early training program. So it's not that we are starting tomorrow. We will continue our work tomorrow, but the work has already been done for a few months before.
So you've been thinking about planning for 2 years' time and all of that. Your head's full of logistics for the future. Are you able to enjoy this FENS Forum, though?
Yeah, I've been able, and one of the examples I was thrilled by, I've been lucky to go to the Jump Defense, which was in an amazing location with this Prater around. So I didn't know this part of Vienna, so that was really very nice. And yesterday we have the presidential dinner in a beautiful palace in the center of Vienna. So I'm bringing with me many memories, not only inside the FENS meeting, but also outside, and I really appreciate that.
Professor Lola Ledesma there, doing battle with passing catering trolleys. Mary Elizabeth Sutherland is a well-known editor and team manager at Nature magazine. She covers work in cognitive and human neuroscience, as well as the behavioural and social sciences. I asked her what she was trying to achieve while she was here at the forum.
So my objective is really to learn about the field. We see a lot of papers as editors because we get many excellent submissions. However, it is passive. We only get submissions from people who know about our journal and think that their work is a good fit for us. And so in coming to conferences like this, we can really see what is going on in the community in a much broader sense than what we see coming in. So we're able to identify new trends, to really see where discussions are going, to see what is exciting people that we might not be getting in our pages, and then also to chat with individual researchers and find out what their new work is, what their upcoming work is, to discuss challenges to the field, to discuss more nuance, to have a real discussion instead of the more formalized exchange that we usually have through the submission and then us making a formal decision on a paper.
And how do the nuts and bolts of that work? I mean, you contact people and say, meet me at a particular place, or are you recording interviews with people? Are you making notes about what they say? How does it work?
Yeah, so my particular way of making it work, especially at big meetings like this, is I do try to schedule some meetings in advance because it's just too big to bump into all the people that you want to see. On the other hand, I also want to leave time open for spontaneous interactions to be able to bump into someone. So I usually try to schedule, maybe 5-6 meetings a day, and then the rest go to particular sessions, listen to questions, see whom I meet. I also tend to post on social media that I'm around so that people can contact me if they would like. So it's a mix of both, and I personally tend to take written notes as opposed to recording, just to put down the main points.
And my guess is that people are really happy to talk to you, or do you find them a little bit wary?
I think people are quite happy to talk because it's nice to know that there's a person who really cares about your work behind the editorial process, I guess. But sometimes people are nervous because we do have, I guess, we have quote unquote power in the decision, but it's usually great. What I love about scientists is they love their work so much. So it's so easy to get them so excited because you just say, tell me the most exciting thing you're working on. And then usually any nervousness goes away and we usually have a great discussion. And I learned so much more from this because you can actually ask in real time your questions. So that I think is really valuable for me, and I always feel that the more I as an editor know, the better I can be, because I can really understand the nuances of a paper, its contribution, understand the referee's points more, and it's a really great experience.
Do you get any time just to enjoy the FENS Forum for yourself?
Oh, that's a good question. So that's very difficult. I have not managed to get to that point. Where I'm at in my career now, I do make sure that I take time to see where I am. So I have made time in the evening to go out into the city of Vienna, to take a walk in the morning. I have made time to get out and enjoy Vienna for myself. Enjoying the forum for myself is a little harder because I'll see somebody and then I feel I need to talk to them.
How would you describe your experience so far at the forum?
I love it. It's big enough that you really see a diversity of people and of topics and things being discussed, but it's also not too big. That for me, SFN, right, in the States is a bit too big. This one, you can at least bump into some people as well, I guess more regularly. I think that they've done a really nice job of choosing their speakers for the plenary and the larger talks and the symposium, that it really covers a lot of interesting topics. There's a lot of interesting overlap, so I'm really enjoying the conference. It's a great one.
Mary Elizabeth Sutherland there, editor at Nature. Professor Elisa Ferre is a cognitive neuroscientist at Birkbeck College, London. She was part of an event yesterday here at the forum called Science in a Space Environment, Neuroscience for Human Space Exploration, organised by ESA, the European Space Agency. And I caught up with her not long before her event began.
Yes, I've been involved in this event because of my work with European Space Agency. My background is in vestibular neuroscience, so I'm interested in how the vestibular system is telling the brain about gravity, whether this is terrestrial gravity or non-terrestrial gravity, such as zero gravity on the ISS, International Space Station, or partial gravity on the Moon and at some point on Mars.
Just to be clear, the vestibular system is part of the way we know where we are in the world.
Correct. So the vestibular system is just amazing. It's a fascinating, complicated organ inside the inner ear, which detects each movement of your head in space and translate the movement in terms of linear and angular acceleration. So linear acceleration is by definition gravity.
So obviously you think neuroscience has an awful lot to say to space exploration.
Absolutely. So neuroscience has actually been neglected for at least at the very beginning of space exploration. But now that we are approaching a new space era with commercial space flight or deep space mission, long mission to Mars and to the moon, the scenario is totally different. We need to send out to space people that can think, act and feel in a way that is coherent with the risky, extreme environment in which they are going to end up to.
Tell us about the event that you're taking part in then tomorrow. What's it? How is it going to look? What's going to happen?
So tonight we are going to have a networking event that has been organized by European Space Agency, and essentially what they have done was putting together neuroscientists from different backgrounds. I'm a cognitive neuroscientist, there is another colleague that is a vestibular specialist, another colleague that is focusing on neuroimaging, and essentially what we are going to do is to have an overview about our research that has been supported by European Space Agency, and try to understand why we need to link neuroscience to space. So we are going to give short presentations of our work, and then we will have a panel to discuss why it's important to think about the brain when we talk about space exploration.
And this is a networking event, so people are going. You're essentially relying on people to make contacts and.
Yes, we hope so. We are nice and friendly, so we really hope that people will enjoy that and make contact and see how we went through the field and what are the opportunities. And perhaps you might have great ideas that are not yet linked to space, and you might see that space is a method to study something that might be very relevant for terrestrial application too.
You're coming at this from an academic point of view, and I understand that completely. But I'm bound to ask you, since you're starting to be involved with thinking about space exploration and stuff like that, is that something that actually interests you personally? Is it something you would like to do?
I would love to. So I have experienced microgravity during parabolic flight. Parabolic flight is a tool that we have on Earth in which we can alter gravity. Is a plane. The inside of a plane doesn't look like a traditional plane. It's full of different experimental setup. And what happened during the 3-hour, 4-hour of parabolic flight is that there are different parabolas, and in each parabola there is a very strong acceleration with about 45-degree pitch of the plane, and then 20 seconds free fall. In this 20 seconds free fall, we can experience microgravity, zero gravity, such as the one in space. And we can run our experiment there. So to cut the story short, I think that microgravity is the best experience ever. Would I like to try it? Yes, I'm totally addicted to it. Would I like to go to the moon? Absolutely yes. Mars? Let me think about. It's too far, and there might not be Italian coffee there.
Thank you very much indeed for talking to us.
Thank you.
If you looked at the forum programme for today, Friday, and yesterday, you would have seen this advert. Do you have a knack for comedy? And have you always wondered how to use humour to communicate science? Then look no further and register for this networking event organised by the FENS Communication Committee, where you will have the chance to develop a comedy set based on your favourite neuroscience topic with the guidance of 3 experts on science communication and comedy. But that's not all. You'll also have the opportunity to perform your comedy set on the open theatre stage at the FENS Forum 2021. Wow, well, they had a huge response to that. In fact, they actually had to close registration for the event. And there were 2 related events, as you'd heard. The first is for training, the second for performing, and I got to speak to the 3 scientists and comedy coaches behind both of them.
So I'm Michele Marini. I'm Italian, but I live in Brussels, Belgium, and I work as a science communication expert and stand-up comedian.
My name is Butler. I am a lecturer in maths and statistics in Technological University of Dublin, and my research is multi-sense integration, and I do a lot of science communication.
I'm Rebecca Ellis. I'm originally from Yorkshire, and the accent comes out when I say the word Yorkshire, but I'm currently living in Swansea, Wales, working as a research assistant at Swansea University, and I'm really passionate about any form of creative science communication.
So can you just tell me about the event that you guys have come to work on? It's a two-parter, isn't it?
Yes, so yesterday we completed our workshop, which I think went very well. I'm getting nods from my fellow creators, so yes. We had a good group of people coming in to talk about how to be more effective in their science communication by using comedy. So incorporating not laugh out loud jokes necessarily, but a little bit of lightheartedness, a little bit of bringing your authentic self into your work in order to communicate better with your audience.
So the idea is not to encourage people to become stand-up comedians, science stand-up comedians, is it?
Well, if someone wanted to, then we would certainly support them to, but our workshop was about engaging people in their work in a way in which they felt more confident to speak about it and using humour in order to connect to people. So we weren't demanding anyone get up on a stage and do a tight 3-minute set. If someone wants to, that's today's opportunity. But mostly it was about thinking of your work in a different way and restructuring it so that it goes across in an entertaining way.
What kind of approach do you take to this? I imagine a room full of people saying, well, this seems interesting, I can learn to be funnier, that would be great. But what do they get? They walk into a room with you guys, John, what do they get?
Well, initially, of course, we have to introduce ourselves, talk about why we're interested. And maybe the first thing that was so important was give them a scientific motivation. So we explain why comedy is useful for explaining their science, how it's very important to communicate science to not just other scientists, but people beyond if you're working with a disease group, to be able to communicate with that disease group, and much, much further beyond, because science miscommunication is such a massive thing. And then what we did was we gave a couple of examples of good comedy science. We let them work as individuals, but actually they all started working together, talking to each other about their little bits of how they think about their own work and maybe finding the absurdity in their work that they think is normal and day to day. But mainly think about the end point. What would you like to communicate and how would you get to that end point? So, for example, if I want to explain something about Alzheimer's research, maybe I talk about how do we study that? And you go, well, I study Alzheimer's research, but I've never met someone with Alzheimer's because I only look at the cells. There is absurdity in everything you do. It doesn't undermine what you do, but it might help you explain it better and appreciate it more. And so when we go into that, we get them to kind of pull out what they find absurd, or even the process of science. So that was our objective, and yeah, I think it went well yesterday.
Michele, you are a stand-up comedian. In fact, all of you perform and do stand-up. Michele, you do it in 2 languages, so just make life even harder for yourself. Here's the serious question. Do you ever get people saying, yeah, I appreciate the idea that people can be a bit funnier, it's good to go to presentations where people are allowing a bit of wit to come through. Aren't you running the danger of trivializing your science? Do people ever ask you about that?
Yeah, actually, what actually we stressed yesterday during the workshop was that you don't need to be funny. You don't need to force yourself to be funny. So be funny is a way to communicate science, is very effective. We have science behind saying that humor can help a lot, but you don't need to do that if it's not your cup of tea. You can just go for something else. And this is, I think, it's part of the game. So you can actually use humor to communicate science. You cannot. The important thing is that you feel confident to express yourself when you speak about science. So challenge the science and try to go a bit out of your angle and just try to understand that sometimes what actually for you it's everyday life is not the case for everybody, and that sometimes there is just a different angle where you can express and you can show science to people that will be much more effective for them, so they can understand much better what you're doing, because every scientist has this problem. How I can explain my research to my grandmother? And being funny is a way, but it's not the only way. You can find tons of different ways to do that. It's just out there. The scope of this workshop was to give a possible angle for that.
Can you give us one top tip each when it comes to how could I be more relaxed, more myself, and maybe more funny in front of an audience when I'm talking about research? So I'm just going to ask you to go for one top tip each.
Ooh, I'm struck between two of them.
My top tip is make a choice.
Oh, all right. Okay. I didn't know it was getting personal. Yeah, I didn't think it was going to be this way. I would say that we are often, as scientists, told to be, there's subjective and there's objective, and we're told to be very stoic in how we present ourselves because science is important and science is serious. Yes, it is. I agree with that completely. We're not trying to undermine that as a message. But what we're saying is there's no harm in connecting with people out there on a human level, because at the end of the day, the majority of our research, we're doing it for other humans out there. And if we can't communicate it effectively in a way in which we are understood, in a way in which is entertaining and gets through to them, then there's only so much that we can achieve.
Yeah, so embrace the connection, the importance of connection. John, what about you?
I would say, actually, fallibility isn't a weakness. So I know definitely with much younger researchers, like they believe at the end of their PhD they should know everything perfectly, and they believe answering something saying I actually don't know that is they failed. But actually the best research should end with a question mark, especially with experimental research like in a lot of neurosciences. An experiment should lead to the next question. And what I find is people get really anxious because they're worried about not being able to answer the question after their formal talk, but that should be a good thing. Either the person has asked a very bad question or they sparked a new interesting thing. And so I also like to try to emphasize to people is, even in your Viva, most people want to see the best version of yourself. Most people in the audience want to hear the best version of your talk, know the most about it, and sometimes it's very hard to realize that actually in science conferences, most people are here to support you. And this is true for actually a lot of science comedy and science communications. Everyone in the room actually wants to be there. So like you're talking to people who really are there. So that's nice.
Brilliant, thank you. Michele, top tip.
I would say that there is the golden rule of stand-up comedy is that talk about something that you know, which I think applied very much also in this context, because it's very easy to relate to people that are talking about something that they are very close to. So if it's something that is close to you, if something that you know, and this doesn't mean that you need to be the biggest expert in the field, but some aspect of your research probably you know very well. And I'm pretty sure that if you see from a certain angle, it's going to be funny. So just do that.
Well, I can tell that people who come on your workshops are very lucky. Thank you guys very much for talking to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michele, John and Rebecca there, ending our podcast for today. Join us tomorrow for news of a delegate who cycled from Oxford, UK to Vienna to be here at the forum, and hear some closing comments from the FENS president and the FENS president-elect. In the meantime, have yourselves a great evening. The FENS Forum podcast was presented by Malcolm Love. The music is by Dennis Kishchuk, and this was a FENS production by Solid Gold Hat.